Imagine dozing off in class, only to wake up in a dream where a floating goddess sobs like you ran over her cat, stabs you in the chest, and then, bam, you're in a medieval throne room being crowned a hero. This is the twisted tale of Inori, a kid who just wanted to survive high school, but instead got slapped with divine powers, multiverse teleportation, and a one-way ticket to a magical worlds of nightmares. Yeah, we're talking torture chambers, creepy doctors, and a demon eye gift that sounds more curse than blessing. Buckle up, because this ain't your grandma's fantasy story. He is overly summoned, overpowered, and trust me, he is so over it. So this young boy, standing there like he's waiting for the bus, when suddenly, a mysterious woman floats over. She gently places her hand on his cheek and whispers, "Nori Inori," in a voice so emotional it could make onions jealous. The boy, understandably confused, thinks, "Who is this? And why does she look like she knows me better than my mom?" Before he can ask, she bursts into tears, like full-on sobbing. And then, without any warning, she stabs him in the chest. Yep, you read that right. The boy's brain short-circuits. Did she just stab me? Why is she crying? And how does she know my name? The questions pile up faster than his confusion. Next thing he knows, he's in a classroom, head down on his desk, trying to remember if he signed up for a horror movie or a high school drama. Turns out, it's just a dream. He wakes up, sits up, and thinks, was that a dream? Or did I just binge watch a thriller in my sleep? It's a regular day at school. Crybaby teachers, otherworldly wars, you know, the usual. The classroom buzzes with chatter, students settling in, and everything seems normal. Or so it seems. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a powerful aura erupts, flooding the room with radiant, pulsating light. It's like someone turned on the sun in the middle of the classroom. The sheer force of it makes every student freeze in shock. Before they can even process what's happening, the light engulfs everything. When it fades, the classroom has vanished. They now stand in a vast, glowing white space, blank and endless. Confusion and fear spread quickly. None of them understand where they are or what just happened. A woman appears, floating gracefully in the air like she's auditioning for a role in a fantasy movie. Her presence is divine. She urges the students to remain calm and reassures them that this place, she explains, is the world's rift, the crossing of souls. She reveals herself as a goddess. They've been summoned from their world, chosen to become heroes destined to defeat the demon lord threatening her realm. The students are stunned. Words like goddess, summoning heroes, and teleportation bounce around as they try to grasp the situation. The goddess goes on to say they'll now be transported to the kingdom of Hygen, a nation in Ver, a world of sword and sorcery. As she speaks, Inori quietly processes everything. This is just like the stories I've read, he thinks. Magic, kingdoms, demon lords, it's all too familiar. The goddess explains their time together is short. Soon, they won't be in this place. But before they leave, she bestows each of them with a special power tailored to their path. These gifts are meant to help them survive and find their purpose. She urges them to resist the allure of power and walk the righteous path, blessed by light and fortune. Moments later, they find themselves standing inside a majestic palace, ornate and filled with nobility. A grand throne looms ahead, occupied by a dignified king. The goddess proudly announces the arrival of the summoned heroes. The hall erupts in applause. The king stands and calls for silence. He welcomes the students with grace and respect, introducing himself as Ryzen Hygen, sovereign of the kingdom of Hygen. With a solemn tone, he pleads with them to defeat the demon lord who threatens to destroy their world. In his honor, everyone in the hall bows deeply to the students. Inori observes the ceremony, surprised at the grandeur and respect they're receiving. What a grand welcome, he thinks. One student, overwhelmed, politely asks the king if they can return to their world and if there's a way back. The goddess, now known as Saint Igia, responds. She confirms that when the full moon rises in a month, they'll have the chance to return. Those who wish not to fight can stay in the palace safely until then. Relief spreads across the group. They're grateful to know they have a choice. Inori quietly muses that it feels more like a tourist experience than a deadly mission. Some girls ask whether time will pass in their world while they're here. The saint answers that no time will pass back home. Their disappearance will go unnoticed. It will be as if they never left. The offer seems too good to be true. Whispers of doubt spread. What's the catch? Some wonder. Yet the saint speaks again, her voice sincere. She begs them to reconsider. Leaving her world is in grave danger. They need help desperately. She asks them to fight back against the dark forces. Inori, listening, thinks this is the moment where a strong-willed hero would step forward and inspire the others to take the quest. But no one does. His class is full of ordinary students. There's no clear leader among them. One student hesitantly asks for time to think. The request is understandable. This is all too sudden. The king grants them 1 month to decide whether they'll stay and become heroes or return home. For now, he encourages them to enjoy the feast prepared in their honor. Excitement returns to the students. Did he just say feast? Someone whispers. Inori smiles to himself. The hospitality is far beyond what he expected. He's eager to taste the food of this fantasy world. He wonders what kind of magical ingredients and exotic flavors await them. Then, unexpectedly, glowing magic symbols form beneath Inori's feet. He recognizes the same aura that transported them earlier. He assumes they're being moved to a new room. The ballroom, maybe. He wishes Earth had such convenient transportation. He even imagines these spells being used to gather food from around the world. His mind returns to the feast. I can't wait to eat. But before he can move, someone notices him. Inori, why are you the only one? The student begins. Inori looks down and realizes the magic aura has surrounded only him. No one else is being teleported. Suddenly, everything vanishes once more. He's back in the vast white space, the same as before. A sense of déjà vu hits him, and then the goddess reappears. She begins speaking again, just like the first time. Inori looks at her and speaks, recognizing her. The goddess pauses, surprised. She recognizes him too. She asks why he's back, reminding him that he just left with his classmates not long ago. Inori replies simply, yes, he had. The goddess stands there in stunned silence, her expression frozen in disbelief. She mutters under her breath, clearly baffled by the strange phenomenon unfolding before her. None of this makes any sense to her. Inori, still confused, asks if he's about to be summoned to yet another place. The goddess responds, albeit vaguely, that he probably will. With a weary sigh, she reminds him that as per the cosmic rules, she has to give him another gift. She admits she has no clue what's really going on and simply wishes him good luck, her tone filled with helplessness. Inori can't help but think how irresponsible she's being in such a serious situation. Looking down, he notices something odd. The magic circle beneath him is different from before. This one glows yellow instead of purple, and the symbols etched within it follow an entirely different pattern. Something is definitely changing. Suddenly, his surroundings shift. He regains consciousness only to find himself bound tightly inside what looks like a cold, clinical research facility. Around him stand two unfamiliar doctors, both wearing white coats and emotionless expressions. Inori pushes his thoughts aside, deciding it isn't the time to panic yet. The older doctor glances at him and announces that the summoning is complete. The second doctor agrees and casually suggests naming the new arrival Subject 12. There's a disturbing excitement in there. Voices. The first doctor nods, saying he has a good feeling about this one. Inori's heart sinks. These people don't see him as a person, they see him as an object. His gut churns with dread. The two doctors exchange twisted smiles and declare the experiment will now begin. They'll proceed slowly and carefully, savoring every step. It was at that moment Inori realized he might be dealing with a real-life version of Dr. Frankenstein and his eerie assistant Igor. The whole scene felt like a nightmare. Wrapped in madness, Frankenstein steps forward, raising a surgical knife aimed at Inori's face. He muses aloud about the legendary demon said to be granted to those summoned from other worlds and their mission to prove it isn't just a myth. Inori's mind clicks. So that was the mysterious gift he received, the demon eye. Dr. Frankenstein then tries to put him to sleep using an advanced form of magical hypnosis, ensuring Inori won't resist. But the spell fails. Inori remains fully awake. The doctor gasps in disbelief. How is the spell not working? Igor stammers, trembling slightly. He reveals something astonishing. Inori's right eye is the demon eye of vision, while his left eye is the demon eye of magic circles. Frankenstein is shocked. A subject possessing not one, but two powerful demon eyes is unheard of. They've struck gold. Without hesitation, Frankenstein decides they will continue the experiment without any sedation. Igor obediently agrees. Inori's panic escalates. Are they seriously going to cut him open while he's fully conscious? This isn't science. It's pure sadistic torture. He has to act fast. Maybe he can use his demon eyes to escape. He struggles against his restraints, and suddenly, a powerful aura surges beneath his feet. The familiar glow hints at a spatial shift. Realization strikes. He's being summoned again. He reappears in that ethereal realm. The goddess looks at him, more amused than surprised, asking sarcastically if he likes her. Inori dismisses her teasing, explaining that he has no idea why this keeps happening. The goddess admits he's the first person ever to experience such repeated summonings. She promises to investigate and let him know if he ever comes back again. Inori observes her demeanor. So this is how she really talks. Casual, even playful. He couldn't help but notice the slip of her tongue. When you return, not if. That tiny detail gave him pause. Soon enough, Inori found himself in yet another strange world. This time, he encountered a noblewoman and a tall, graceful elf. They immediately mistook him for some kind of summoned beast, attempting to bind him to a pact of servitude. Before they could complete the ritual, Inori vanished again, reappearing before the goddess. She looked at him, both exasperated and fascinated. How do you keep doing this? Inori shrugged. Just lucky, I guess. The goddess sighed. Humans with unusually strong souls can survive dimensional summoning. Your soul is one of the strongest I've seen. That makes you rare and valuable. Inori blinked. I'm just a normal high school student. Nothing special. She clarified. A soul's strength isn't determined by virtue or kindness, but by the strength of one's ego, your unshakable sense of self. She continued. The endless summoning will stop once your soul is properly anchored to a world. Perhaps through a hero's pact. Inori's fifth summoning was through black magic. This time, the gift he received was darker in nature. Yet, he still couldn't form a hero's pact. The cycle continued. By the sixth summoning, Inori had become a demon. The goddess observed him with a mix of awe and disbelief. You've become absurdly powerful, she noted. Inori agreed, though wearily. I feel like the next summoning will finally be the last. Hearing this, the goddess decided to combine all his abilities into one form before sending him off again. She instructed him to check his status in the next world using his right eye. It would show him everything he needed to know. This time, Inori found himself inside a majestic castle. 3 other high school students stood nearby, Ryudo Shinzaki, Tamaki Karasawa, and Agoyai Saizo. They appeared to be around his age and were conversing as if they'd known each other for a long time. In another part of the castle, the king expressed confusion. Only 3 students were supposed to arrive, yet somehow 4 had shown up. As Inori observed, he realized they had all been summoned at the same time. The other 3 called each other by name, indicating they were already acquainted. That meant only one thing. He was the outsider, the unwanted 4th wheel. The king leaned forward, his expression filled with disbelief. It seemed clear that 3 of the summoned were confirmed. Heroes, but the 4th, Inori, appeared to be nothing more than a regular person who had been accidentally caught up in the ritual. Just then, a commanding voice cut through the air. The kingdom's princess approached, her posture proud and eyes gleaming with authority. She introduced herself as the first princess, the one who had summoned the heroes herself. With a smug smile, she reminded them to thank her for their newfound status. Inori looked at her side internally. She was exactly what every cliché fantasy needed, the pompous princess archetype with theatrical flair. She welcomed them to the kingdom of the rising sun and explained the structure of the world: humans, demi-humans, and demons. The humans had been engaged in a long-standing conflict with the demon race. Recently, the demon lord had united the demons under a single banner, creating a nation of his own and launching invasions into human territories. In response, the human empire of Mard, an allied kingdom, requested urgent aid. The only way to summon heroes was through women of royal blood, making her the sole candidate to carry out the ritual. Her grand plan was to form an elite army composed entirely of summoned heroes, each trained in separate kingdoms before reuniting to fight under one banner. She found it brilliant. Inori, however, couldn't shake the unease in his chest. How many heroes did she intend to summon? He feared they might just become disposable soldiers in her grand strategy. The princess proudly proclaimed that these 4 would represent the kingdom of the rising sun. She expected them to train harder than anyone else, become the strongest, and ultimately defeat the demon lord. Inori couldn't help but scoff internally. Even the name of the kingdom felt absurdly cheesy. Ryudo raised a serious question. Was there any way for them to return to their own world? The princess's answer was curt and final. No, there wasn't. The weight of those words hit them hard. The 3 heroes looked shaken, realizing the permanence of their situation. The princess, however, remained unfazed, suggesting they should be grateful. Not everyone got the chance to become a hero. Days passed in a blur of training and tests. Physical and magical aptitude were measured with ruthless precision. Ryudo dominated the physical trials with sheer brute strength, smashing every obstacle in his path. Aoi and Tamaki dazzled in the magical tests, their control and potential unmatched. Inori discovered he did have some magical ability, but the moment he tried to use it, it fizzled out or spiraled uncontrollably. His control was poor. Worse, the examiner saw no potential for growth. Physically, he was average at best. Actually, he felt weaker than he had been on Earth. Breathing hard, body aching, he sat quietly, ashamed of being outclassed, especially by the girls. But eventually, he came to terms with it. After all, they were heroes. That night, he found himself invited to Ryudo's room along with the others. The room was spacious, far larger than his own. The group began discussing their next steps, but Inori sat alone in the corner, silent and distant. Aoi looked over and asked why he had even been invited. "You're just a regular guy," she said. The word stung. Was that really how they saw him? Tamaki replied casually, "We're heroes. You're not. You don't belong in the conversation." Inori sat quietly, his embarrassment growing. She was speaking as if he weren't even in the room. Still, he saw through her cold exterior. She was the kind of person who cared but masked it behind sharp words. Ryudo agreed. It was true. Inori lacked the skills and strength they possessed. He'd need protection just to survive, especially from someone like Aoi. Inori observed them. Unlike Tamaki, Aoi and Ryudo were calm and considerate. Aoi especially. Her facial expressions were subtle and kind. All of them were strong, capable, good-looking. What a life, he thought, with a mix of awe and envy. Tamaki posed a question. Should they stay here? Inori was quick to answer. Absolutely. The kingdom had treated them well so far. There was no reason to leave. Later, he quietly scribbled into his notebook. They're spying. Don't say anything that'll draw suspicion. He then added, with a hint of pride, that they could thank his blessing for that. The others looked at him, eyes wide in surprise. Inori smirked silently to himself. It looked like he had just scored his first win. Inori's mind was racing. His unique blessing, detection, was proving to be far more useful than he'd ever anticipated. It allowed him to sense life around him, detecting even the faintest traces of movement and presence. Right now, he could feel it clearly. Someone was standing just outside their door, listening. He narrowed his eyes. That wasn't right. They had already dismissed all the maids who were assigned to this corridor. Whoever was outside wasn't supposed to be there. It could either be a maid who had returned without permission or someone else, someone who meant to eavesdrop. Without wasting time, Inori quickly scribbled a message into his notebook, unsure if anyone would read or understand. But there was no time to hesitate. He requested, through the note, to create a soundproof barrier around them. Aoi responded. Without hesitation, she stepped forward, focusing her energy, and summoned a magical soundproof field around the room. A soft glow shimmered for a moment, and the outside world was instantly muted. She informed the group that it was working but urged them to be quick. Her magic was still unstable. She was new to this kind of spell and couldn't maintain it for long. Ryudo was visibly impressed. His eyes lit up with admiration as he praised her, calling her incredible and the best among them. Aoi blushed slightly, smiling at the compliment, grateful for the recognition. Watching the exchange, Inori could only sigh inwardly. Really, Ryudo? Flirting at a time like this? Tamaki crossed her arms and voiced the question that had been lingering in the air. Why was someone spying on them? What did the kingdom have to gain from monitoring a bunch of summoned heroes? Ryudo's expression turned serious. He reminded them that the blessings given to heroes like theirs could be incredibly powerful. If such abilities fell into the wrong hands, they could endanger the kingdom, even the world. So it wasn't surprising that someone was keeping a close eye on them. Tamaki's frustration boiled over. She shouted that the kingdom didn't even ask for their consent before summoning them. They were just dragged here with no explanation, no choice. Inori, still calm but thoughtful, added that the kingdom seemed desperate. He admitted he couldn't say anything with certainty. He barely understood this world, but signs of decline were everywhere. The king made far too many public appearances. It shouldn't have been this easy to meet a monarch. Even the guards and servants in the palace were too few. It all pointed to a fragile kingdom struggling to maintain its image. Tamaki nodded slowly. She had noticed it too, but the food they were served had seemed rich, expensive, and flavorful. Maybe things weren't as bad as they seemed. She remembered the taste clearly. It wasn't anything fancy, but the food had been heavily seasoned with garlic and spices. Inori almost recoiled at the thought of it. The taste had been unbearable to him. Ryudo then raised another point. The room they were staying in didn't feel like it belonged to a hero at all. It resembled more of a servant's quarters, simple, unadorned, and far from impressive. Inori inwardly admitted that it was still larger than his room back in Japan, which said a lot. Perhaps the kingdom was testing their reactions to their accommodations, gauging how well they'd adapt. The meager standards of the kingdom of Hygen, where he had been summoned before, gave him a better point of comparison. Speaking aloud, Inori noted that depending on how things turned out, they might have no choice but to leave this kingdom. If that came to pass, he could rely on his detection ability to evade guards and sneak out, but escaping was only half of the problem. They'd still need to find a way to return home. He recalled the first princess words, "No way home." But maybe she was hiding the truth or keeping the method a secret. Either way, leaving wouldn't be easy. Ryudo agreed. They were still too weak and clueless. For now, they had to watch and wait for an opportunity. Just then, Tamaki stepped closer, eyeing Inori suspiciously. She pointed out that his left eye looked strange with its yellow hue. Why was it that color? Her question struck Inori like a bolt of lightning. How could he have forgotten about that eye? The one that was yellow. It certainly wasn't normal. Back in Japan, people would think. It was strange, maybe even suspicious, a clear sign that something was off. Ryudo stepped in, defending Inori. He told Tamaki that everyone had secrets, parts of themselves they didn't want to share, and though she might find it odd, she should leave Inori alone. After all, she was still adjusting to everything herself. Inori understood what Ryudo was thinking. He probably assumed Inori was just some teenager playing at being special, with a colored contact lens in one eye. A chinibyo, someone caught up in fantasy. Inori decided to play along, mentally declaring with a grin, "Behold the power of my mystic eye." That night, as Inori sat alone in his room, deep in thought, something important came to mind. What exactly did this so-called evil eye do? He needed to figure it out. He focused inward, summoning his status screen. His stats were clear: HP 815, MP 8367, STR 956. He frowned. These numbers were abnormally high. So why had he performed so poorly in the physical exams earlier? He navigated to the Skills tab and scanned through the list. There they were: Mystic, Eye of Poetry, True Mystic Eye, Steel, Large Dark Magic Detection. He was stunned. These were powerful skills. No wonder he'd been summoned so many times. This was his third summoning, and he recalled his second summon, where he hadn't been brought in as a human, but as a human-like monster. At the time, his name had been Takafuji Injury, and he belonged to the demon race, a vampire, to be exact. His rank had been that of a baron. The realization hit him hard. Vampires naturally despised sunlight. During the day, their stats dropped to a mere tenth of their potential, and their ability to use skills was severely limited. That explained everything. The physical exams had been held during the day, and the food. He shuddered again at the thought of the garlic. It wasn't just personal preference, it was a biological reaction. Thinking back even further, he recalled, feeling an unnatural pull earlier when looking at Tamaki and Ryudo. His eyes had been drawn to the blood pulsing under their skin, especially around their necks, a vampire's instinct. He'd been too focused on using detection to scan for threats that he hadn't noticed what was happening inside himself. This strange yellow eye, his vampire nature, there were still pieces of himself missing. He needed to know more. No more assumptions, no more guessing. He would examine each and every one of his skills to uncover the truth about who he really was. He dove into his intelligence-based skills, noticing some were directly linked to his repeated summons. One of his abilities let him sense all living beings within his range, detection. It was like he could feel others' presence, even through walls. Another skill, weapon creation, allowed him to extract magical energy from surrounding materials and convert it into usable weapons. To test it out, Inori focused on a nearby candle. Concentrating, he activated the skill. The candle shimmered and morphed into a sleek, sharp knife in his hand. Instant, clean, and efficient. He was impressed by how well it worked. His eyes then fell on his red eye, and he activated its analysis mode. A list of features appeared: Poet's Mystic Eye, Absolute Motion Detection, Absolute Measurement, Long-Distance Vision, Microscopic Vision, Night Vision, Analysis, Clairvoyance, Illusion Discernment, Eye Vision, Photographic Memory, Perception of External Gazes. These eyes didn't just let him see, they granted him extraordinary insight. He could track movement, see through illusions, and even perceive magical auras from miles away. He shifted his focus to the yellow eye. Another list appeared: True Mystic Eye. It claimed near total perception, capable of seeing things the red eye couldn't. The left eye was even more potent. It could see arcane patterns and magical circles, which he could copy directly into his pupils and activate. The potential was immense. Inori blinked slowly, overwhelmed but fascinated. There was a lot to unpack here, but for now, he needed to focus on survival and adaptation in this new world. His gaze shifted to the other skills listed: Eye of the Poet, Eye of Truth, Weapon Transmutation, Sun God's Disdain, Skill Theft, Baron Class Authority, and, again, Detection. He smirked slightly. Many of these skills were still a mystery. But one thing was clear: vampirism. If he drained more blood than a human could survive, the victim would turn into a ghoul. If the person was a virgin and consumed his blood after being bitten, they would be reborn as a vampire under his control. If he didn't do anything, they'd remain ghouls. But if he killed them and infused their body with his blood, they'd become his servant, loyal and bound to him. He could even absorb their memories, gaining their knowledge and skills. A chilling realization sank in. He wasn't just powerful, he was a monster. At night, his true strength would bloom. But before he could fully embrace this power, he had to adjust to this world and to this new body of his. The next morning, the heroes gathered at a training ground in the Rising Sun Kingdom. Standing before them was Iana, a composed and intimidating knight commander who would personally train them in martial arts. Inori watched her curiously. A female knight commander of an entire kingdom? That was unusual in his old world, but in fantasy, anything was possible. Iana turned to Tamaki and Oi, acknowledging their strong magical potential, but reminding them that even magic users needed basic martial arts training. She decided they didn't need strength training, given their stats had already exceeded human limits. Inori silently agreed. It would have been pointless for them. But then, Iana turned to him and pointed out that he was different. He would need to build his physical strength from scratch, at least to the level of a regular foot soldier. The scene shifted to Inori pushing through grueling physical training. Sweat poured down his face as exhaustion set in, but he couldn't stop. Iana had promised to train him personally, and he had to give it his all. Just then, two figures arrived, both princesses. The first was the haughty princess from the other day, and the second, another princess, her beauty striking but her expression cold and emotionless, like a doll with a practiced smile. Iana greeted them both respectfully, and the second princess, with calm grace, introduced herself. She expressed that she would be working with Inori directly moving forward. Later, Inori found himself in a royal chamber, sitting across from the second princess. She explained that this would be where his lessons took place, unlike the other heroes, who were learning together in a different room under the first princess's guidance. The reason? The first princess had outright refused to teach someone she didn't consider an official hero. Inori accepted this quietly, but a promise of revenge quietly stirred within him. Hey there, we've come to the end of another fantastic video. I hope you've enjoyed watching as much as I have. Now, I'd like to ask you a favor. If you found this video helpful or entertaining, please give it a thumbs up. Your support means the world to me. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay updated on all our future content. Your feedback is crucial in helping us create more engaging and informative videos. So, what would you like to see next? Is there a topic you'd like me to cover? Leave a comment below and let me know. Your suggestions are always welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, stay awesome.